So, now let us understand a project, what exactly the project is in Jira and how you can actually configure projects in Jira. So, to do that we will try to understand something over here, then we will do some practical within Jira. So, if you are actually looking into these projects, you can see there are different layers over here. So, we have a bottom layer, then so one project is there, another project is there, and this is the third project we have. So, similarly, and each project is primarily having one backlog. You can have Scrum boards, you can have Kanban boards, you can have storyboards and task boards. So, those are all what we have in a project level. So, one project, there can be within a Jira software we can have multiple projects. So, this is what we are seeing, one project, this is another project, and the topmost we have one project. So, we can have multiple projects, each project will be having up one backlog, and we can have multiple Scrum board or Kanban board, storyboard, multiple boards in the sense. We can name them as a Scrum board, we can name them as a Kanban board, but we can have multiple boards. Now, let us try to understand this particular area where we are talking about, okay, we have one backlog and this is one project. Within one project we can have different boards, Scrum board, Kanban board, storyboard, task board, and many other boards. Similarly, we can have multiple sprints. We can have a sprint 1 backlog, sprint 2 backlog, sprint 3 backlog, sprint 4 backlog. This backlog on the left hand side is a product backlog. We are taking multiple stories from product backlog and put into different sprint, and those are called sprint backlog. But at any given point of time, only one sprint is active. You can have only one active sprint, and the future sprints, those are visible in Jira. All the completed sprints that will not be visible on your backlog view, that can be queried and fetch the data. Similarly, on the project sides, what we have is different components of any project. So, components can be issues, can be search and filters, releases, then there is something specifically called components. We will quickly look into that in our Jira, and then reports or dashboards that we can have. Now, before we go into Jira, let us try to understand these sections here. When we were talking about the previous one, we have issues, searches, releases, component and dashboard. This is how the Jira interface is. So, we have, this is the name of the project we have, this is your boards, or select your board under selected project. So, one project have multiple boards that we can select, and within one project we can have multiple boards. So, we can select a board, from board we will be having backlog, there will be one active sprint. So, this backlog is your product backlog and sprint backlog combinations will be there. So, we will look into that how it looks like. Then we will be having active sprints, and then we will have reports. So, these are the different reports, browse all the reports on positions, this is how we navigate. And similarly, there are a few other components that we talked about. We have releases, issues and filters, pages, this is a quick links to page outside Jira, primarily Confluence page. We have components, we have any items that you want to add, external link, documents that you can add it from there, and the project settings. So, this is the project if you want to change that settings. Now, let us try to understand this particular layouts in Jira, how it looks like. Okay, I will quickly go into a pre-configured Jira that I have. It will be having a same look and feel, but with some pre-populated data that can help us understand the backlog, how it looks like. Let us try to understand this one. This is a Jira instance that is named Agile digest.atlassian.net, where I already have configured multiple projects, different boards. So, I will just click on projects to show you. Once you have multiple projects, all the projects will list up. I will just click on any one of the projects. So, for an example, I click on Agile Digest, that was one project I had. If I have not deleted it, it will show up, but I think I already have deleted this project. So, I will bring up some other project. Okay. So, this is the project that I have, and where I can actually see this is the project and name of the project. I can explore all the projects from here. The most recent 4 projects will be appearing here, and if you want to select all of your projects, you can click on view all projects. So, if you click on view all projects, it will show you all the projects. You can select your specific project. So, this is where we are actually selecting the projects that we want to go for, and once you select a project, it will show you the default page. I can actually go into the backlog. So, selections of project is actually, if you look into these multiple blocks here, these are the different projects we have: project 1, project 2, project 3, and we are just selecting which projects we want to go into. So, that is your selection of project. Once we have selected the project, we will be able to select a board. So, you can create multiple board. We will talk about in details what exactly the boards are. Over here I can see there is some board for Scrum, some board for Kanban, some board we are creating only for populating stories, some boards we are creating only to populate task board. We will learn more details about that, how we can do that, but as on when you will create boards, all will list up here. So, the heading you can see boards in Team Galaxy, that is the project, is the current selection projects. There are also some other boards, those are belongs to other projects. It shows all the recent items. If you want to create a new board, you will select create board, and it will ask what kind of board you want to create. You want to create a Scrum board or Kanban board. In both the Scrum board and Kanban board, there are some filters where you can make it story specific board or task specific board or epic specific board, all can be go in there. So, for an example, I am not creating it right now, I am just showing you all the boards that you have created is actually come up over here. So, this is a Team Galaxy storyboard and this is a Team Galaxy task board. If I click on storyboard, it will take me to the storyboard. This is my storyboard looks like as of now. Those are the dump or dummy data or demo data. So, do not just focus on the data we have. I am just navigating how we can go into the different board. Now, if you want to switch to a different board, you can click on this icon once again and select the task board. So, it will switch to the task board. So, what we were doing here is we already have selected this project. The blue one is the project that currently we are working on. There are many other projects. We know how to select those projects from the top drop down. Under the project, we have multiple boards that I am selecting. I can select this board or this board or this board. There is one options what we were talking about. These are the different boards we know. Now, once you have selected the board, you can actually select a backlog for that particular. So, backlog will always be remain one. You do not have a selections of backlog. The backlog will be remain same, and we have a backlog over here, and if you see there are two different sections. The below sections is the backlog and this above section is a sprint backlog. So, what we were talking about, we can have one primary backlog and we can have multiple sprint backlog. So, this current sprint is actually, I am seeing there is a start date and end date, that means it is actually a active sprint. Now, I can still create another sprint. This is sprint 2. If I create a sprint 3, it will automatically take the name and I can plan something under that sprint by just doing a drag and drop. So, I have 2 sprint here and 1 backlog over here. This is my product backlog, this is my future sprint and this is my active sprint. Active sprint, I believe you already know what exactly the sprint is. I am not going into that. And in Jira there will be multiple new areas came up. This is a link to the Confluence. If you have Confluence, you can do that. But as of now, what I am trying to make you understand is multiple boards, backlogs or sprint backlog and product backlog. So, if you know there can be only one active sprint over here also, these all sprints are future sprints or all this sprint backlog are for the futures. The future sprints are all over here, and then this sprint current active sprint where you can actually see start date and end date From there you can actually find out, okay, this is an active sprint, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 items of active sprint in a board from the active sprint. So, this is your active sprint, how it looks like. Now, the board what we are looking into is depends on what we have selected here. So, I have selected a task board. So, it is having a different representations of the same backlog. One story can have task, and this board is configured in such a way. We will learn how to configure this kind of board for different need in later videos or later tutorials. But for now, this is one board that is called a Team Galaxy task board, and we are looking into active sprint where the backlog is this. So, we have the details backlog, sprint backlog and future sprint backlog. You can see the active sprint in this way. The visualizations can be configured at the board level. Now, if I select a storyboard, same active sprint representations will change, because we have configured the active sprints under storyboard should look differently, the active sprint under the task board should look differently. So, that way you can actually configure. We will try to understand how to configure them, how to create different board, what is the needs of those board in later states. So, these are the primary 4 areas that we were talking about, that projects, board, backlog, active sprints. And now there is something called reports. Based on different uses, we can navigate all our reports. Those are the few pre-built reports already there in Jira. We will go into deep of each and every reports later. When we were talking about few of the components of any projects or key areas, these are the areas that we are talking about. Releases. So, releases are multiple release that you can select, where you can say when my release will start date, what will be my release date, and we assign releases to stories. We will do that, how we can configure stories and release mapping. There are some issues and filters. These issues and filters actually talked about. I am just showing you the navigations and a very highlights of that. So, issues and filters are something where you can find out any issues. What exactly the issues in Jira? Any backlog items, whether it is a story, whether it is a bug, whether it is a epic, whether it is task, subtask, everything in Jira called issues. So, when I click on issues and filter, it shows me all the issues with different filter criteria. I can actually have options to make changes of my selection criteria, or I can write queries. There are 2 ways of doing filters. This is a query what I am filtering, but still I will go into much more deeper dive on what exactly the query sections like this. If I click on basic, how it is changing to drop down sections to select, we will go into that. But this is the place where you want to search for issues with different criteria, you can actually go there. Now, once you have came back here, I again needs to go back, and this is I need to go back to projects, because from the issues it is actually give you options to select issues from any projects. So, it lose the track of which project I was. I can still go by back button, or you can select the project directly. Okay, so, this is all the releases we had, then we had issues and filters. So, pages are something that is a Confluence page. If you are using Confluence, you can actually link up or create multiple pages from here. If you click on the pages, you can create multiple pages, but you need to have a Confluence license. If I click, if I do not have a Confluence license, it will ask me to buy a license. So, try Confluence free for 30 days, because I do not have a Confluence. So, I am not going into that. Components are something you can actually read the first line. The components are subsections of a project, use them to group issues with a project into smaller parts. So, components are once you have one project, you can actually create multiple components for different subsections. So, for an example, if you understand stories, you can create multiple stories under one group. For an example, you created 20 stories under one project, and out of them you have covering top 5 stories or first 5 stories under one component, that is called Android app. The next 5 you are doing it for iOS, the last 10 you are configuring for web app. So, that way you can actually create different categories of different. Now, all the 5 stories can be under one epic that is called a supplier. So, there are multiple ways we can categorize. We have epic in one area is a big bucket, big requirements. For if you are making a e-commerce applications, you can have different epic supplier for all supplier related functionality, or consumer, or security, or inventory, or finance. That can be different module you can create, and all the modules you may be creating something for Android app, something for if there are some integration, some you are doing it for your ERP application, something you are working for some of your front end tool. For an example, you are a small e-commerce business and you are making something within Magento. So, some tools, some stories are only required only for Magento, some all require for Magento and ERP both. So, you can actually categorize the stories with components. So, let us not go into much details. This is the area where we want to know how we can navigate. Now, this is one link that I have created. This is an external link, and if I click on edit, it will show you. This is if I want to go to my website agileagents.com, this is the area where I will be going into. So, I have created a shortcut. Similarly, if you are doing a planning poker from one website, you can have one link for doing planning poker. If you are doing a retrospective outside Jira, maybe you are using Go Reflect, you are using idea boards, there are many retrospective tools. So, you can actually have the link over here, and how to create the link, you can click on add items. You want to create a shortcut, repository or pages. So, you can simply create a shortcut where you will give the link and the name, and it will appear here. And for the project settings, you can actually click on the project settings. It will give you the details of how you can set up your project with some areas. We will go into details later at the time of administration on each and every items. So, for now this is the scope what we had. So, we understood the basic navigations. Now, we will try to understand few of the other menu areas. So, if you click on this area, this is a Jira software. So, core Jira what you have, primarily you have project, dashboard, issues and filters, and Jira settings. This is the 4 areas you can actually go into. The star is actually all your favorites, recent boards, recent project, what you have used, what you have navigated, you can actually go from here. So, recent dashboard, recent issues, everything will be come up here. This one is the search. If you want to go for a global search, we can do that, and similarly we have this plus signs to create new issues. This is your notifications in case there is a notifications options in Jira, someone can mention you or you are the assignee, someone makes some changes, it creates notifications for you and that will appear here, and these are the administrative panel or profile, etc. So, let us try to look into these areas. So, this is what we have our projects. So, if I click on this menu, it will show this is actually, if anything in the big area is blue, that means actually it came from this menu. So, this is dashboard, projects, it will take you to list of all the projects, it will show you the dashboards. You can actually go into issues and filters directly from here, and there are multiple issues, you can actually still go for issues and filters. Now, back to main menu, I can go into Jira settings, and where you can actually go for system, product, project, issues, apps, these are the areas. So, the system Jira settings can also be accessed from one more area. So, you can click here and then Jira settings, or you can actually directly click here and it will show up all those options in a while. So, I just clicked here and it will show me all those sections of the Jira settings. So, there are two ways we can actually go for the settings area. Now, once you will install and explore, you can actually find out much more details. I will be covering all those items in very details one by one in our future videos that you will be able to see within this page or in some of the future videos coming up, and you will get notified. Now, this is the favorite area where it talks about all the projects, all the issues, all the boards that I have actually recently explored or recently visited. From there I can actually find out what is my favorite items that I am frequently visiting. So, at this, if anything you have marked as a starred, so you can actually mark starred like this, it will come up here, then recently you visited any boards, and at the end also you can see view all boards. So, you can go directly to all the boards from here, and if you click on view all boards, let us see what it shows. So, here list of all the boards, and also it shows location, that is actually your projects, which location this board is actually residing. So, that is your project area. So, this is one way you can actually browse all boards. Similarly, we know that we also have checked in one area that was talking about all the projects, and from the project. So, if you remember this particular area, let me just show you quickly. If you click on boards, and at the bottom of that board we were having create board or more boards. We will look into that quickly. Now, this is your favorites area where we have recent boards, we have recent issues, recent projects, recent filters. We can create search and save it as filter, that we will also learn, recent dashboard and recent issues, and this is view all issues. Also from here you can search for more issues, you can search for your dashboard, you can create multiple dashboard and save it as different name. So, there are many ways we can actually go into one area. Now, this is a search area where you can actually search for any items. You just need to type in the name. So, for an example, if I type 006, it will search in the entire Jira and show you. You can click that item and go to directly to that particular project or that particular issue. It will show up all the details of the issues. We are not going into that. But what we are talking about, if you do not remember the name or if you want multiple results, you can still view, search for issues, search for boards, search for projects, search for filters, search for people. So, there are multiple search you can do. Here you can actually, I can search for people, just directly type the name and it will show me if there is any users with that name is there. So, I do not think there is any user with that, but I think Mohit Gupta is one person's came, somehow the Agile is related or in their profile or somewhere there are Agile Digest board. So, it shows this keyword math with issues, math with boards, project and filters. But if I just want only boards or projects or filters, I can select any of these button here, and for an example I want to look for all the boards. I will click on boards, it will come up here, I can search for board. As of now it is visible because I have only few boards, but in a large organizations you will be 100 of boards, and out of them searching one boards is not very easy. So, this search box will help you greatly. If you want to search for an example, if you want to search for people, it will take you to the people search area, and where you can actually search for all the members that you have. So, this is one way we can actually search for people based on your access you have. Now, what we will be doing is this plus sign, this is a create issues. Issues I told you, any items, whether it is a story, task, bug, everything is called issues. So, when you click a plus sign from this blue bar, it shows a window where you can select the project and then you can select what type of issues you are creating. So, everything is issues, but all issues have issue types, and that can be a bug, that can be a story, that can be an epic. Technical spike is another custom issue types that we have created, that we will learn later how to create custom issue types that will appear here later. But this is a very first video, first tutorial to getting familiar with Jira, and these are the different resolutions we are adding based on how we have configured our screen. The screen is appearing, and once you will create it here with all the informations, it will go to the backlog of this particular project. So, these particular projects have backlog, and this task will appear on all the boards based on that board's filter. So, if we have different filters for different boards, it will be appearing based on whether it is meeting the filter criteria for task. So, this is a task how you can create, this is a story how you can create from a root level. We can still create a story or create a task from many different areas. So, for an example, if I go to backlog, and from backlog I can directly create issues from here. So, if I click on the end of the backlog create issues, I can directly create issues directly here. Similarly, if I am actually opening a epic, I am just showing you multiple ways to creating stories. So, if I open these stories, this is my stories, I will expand, this is my epic, I am expanding this epic, and inside a epic you can create a child issue. So, this is one area where we can, so this is, we are just trying to understand all these menu options. This is your notifications, all notifications you received will appear here. So, if you have enabled notifications, your administrator enables notifications so that you can get notifications over email, and also in this bell icon, so someone added you as a watcher, or you are actually watching and some changes happened by someone else. So, you will get a notification. Now, there are different Jira versions, Jira softwares you have, products. You may have Jira software, Confluence, Jira Service Desk, or Jira software. You can switch between different product of Atlassian directly from here. So, I do not have Confluence or Jira Service Desk for this one, but if I switch into people, it will take me to the people mode where I can configure all the people. Now, again if I want to switch back to Jira software, it will take me back to the Jira software. So, this is where it is actually this button is called switch. This is for help, if you need any help, this is having Atlassian community and get Jira mobile, all these help information you can explore it, I am not going into that. This is another settings for your the entire Jira as a user management. If you are a site admin, you will able to do that, and billing. If you are a site admin, so as of now if you have installed your own Jira versions, by default you will be the site admin. If you are working in your organizations, you may not be having the site admin rights, but as a project administrator you can have all these rights. So, there are even administrations in a project level, administration can be at board level, administration at entire Jira level, and the site admin. There are multiple layers of administration we have. So, this is what I am seeing because I have a site admin, I have installed it. So, I have the full control of this Jira. I can configure users, I can configure my billing, what software I need, what software I do not need. I can configure the entire systems, global permissions, look and feel, everything I can configure. Products, manage your Jira product settings and integrations, that I can configure. I can configure projects, I can configure issues and apps. Primarily, if you are working within a project as a scrum master or development team or someone as a Jira admin, primarily this is the 4 areas. Out of those 4 areas, product, project, issues and app, issues is the area where we will be configuring most, and that will be most interesting. We will be covering all the administrative portion also as a series of this tutorial. Let us try to go ahead and see. This is your profile. Based on whatever your login informations you have, you can actually change your profile, you can give feedback, log out, and also change your profile, your images, how you want to look your images, and change your account, your job title, all these informations, that if you think those are relevant to add, you can add or you can leave it. So, this is how we can actually work on Jira by navigating with multiple options that we have. Let us try to go back to our PowerPoint and see what else we have. So, this is what we actually talked about. We can have Jira, and from Jira we can actually have multiple these project issues, portfolio and Jira settings. If you select Confluence, you will be having a different menu. If you select Service Desk, you will be having a different menu. So, those are different product within our Jira. So, this is having one interface, you can switch between multiple interfaces from your Jira. So, primarily what we are focusing on Jira software. Once we will do Confluence, we may come up to this page and try to see how we are navigating to Confluence from one interface. That is all for today for this particular, I think that is all for the Jira introduction sections. We will start with the next video, or you can actually explore the next video about the next topics we have. This is what we are closing this particular topic now. Thank you all, thanks for your time, have a wonderful day. We will meet you in our next video. Till that time, bye bye.